those who aren't able to come. Yeah, so you will be accessing class every day through Zoom. For those of y'all who do not feel comfortable coming to campus on any day, especially if you're feeling sick in any capacity, go ahead and hop on through Zoom. The other contingent of y'all are doing the in-person version, but you all should have been assigned either a blue or a silver day to come to campus. And if you're not sure what those days actually are for you, you can find them online, and it's based off of your A number. I think it's something like from 0 to 4 for your last digit of your A number are blue days, and for 5 through 9 are silver days. But if anybody knows differently, please let me know. Oh, for the love of all things holy, the computer's bring up again here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. And if I can get the slides up, great. If not, well, I'll just post them online after and try to figure out what in the world's going on with the computer later. So I like to start every class, for those of y'all who have had me before, with a fun fact of the day. Usually that has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about, but I think it's kind of a fun way to, oh, it's at the top of your schedule. Thank you, Evan. Sorry, I'm gonna try not to be as all over the place here, but I see the chat popping up. So yeah, so your blue and silver day designation should be at the top of your schedule. But so yeah, so I like to start every class with a random fun fact of the day that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, just because I think it's a fun way to get class started. And I think it's also, if you learn nothing else in class, hopefully you will at least have something you can take away to tell people about. I don't remember what my fun fact of the day was supposed to be today. Hopefully I'll get that pulled up, and if I do, you'll get 2 fun facts of the day. But the go-to fun fact for today is that the lighter was actually invented before the match, which always blows my mind. I don't know why, in my mind, the match seems to be so much more of a simple technology, but apparently it's not. So, all right. I am getting that slide slowly pulled up, but let me talk a little bit about who I am, and then we'll talk a little bit about the class. So I know some of y'all have had me before, and I know I've used this joke before, but I've been reminded of it these last couple of days when I've been asked if I was a student several times over. I know I look like a tired 12-year-old, but I promise I'm old enough to be your instructor. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Virginia, go Hoos, and did my PhD at Colorado State University. After that, I went to the US Air Force Academy for a postdoc, and then came down here last year, my first year, to start on faculty at UAH. I love it. I'm not an Alabama native, but my folks live down in Mobile or near Mobile, and so I've got ties to the state, and I love being in Huntsville currently. All right, there are the slides. Freaking finally, my goodness. All right, share the screen. Cool. All right. So do y'all see the presenter view or the actual screen? Because it's
just a screen.
Oh, okay, just the screen, perfect. All right, so here is your fun fact of the day that I was supposed to give you. President Taft was the only US president to also sit on the Supreme Court. Apparently he didn't even want to be president. He wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, but got roped into being president. So there you go. All right, so chat box coming up stuff. Is class every day or is it just Mondays and Wednesdays? So class will be Mondays and Wednesdays. For those of y'all who are on the in-person section, you will either come Mondays or Wednesdays. You will not come both. And the day you come is designated by your A number. And so thanks, Ivana, I assume that's how you say it. I apologize if I butcher anybody's names here. But yeah, so if your last number of your A number is 0 to 4, you come on Mondays. If it's 5 to 9, you come in person on Wednesdays. But on the other day you are not coming, you will still have access to the lectures via Zoom like we have now. Perfect. Thank you all so much for helping out on the chat there. That's fantastic. So yeah, like I said, I'm Nate Tenenfeld, UVA, CSU, USAFA, and then I came here. So amongst my hobbies are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, although the whole COVID thing has made Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a little less desirable, being right on top of other people. Grown adults sweating right in your face is not maybe the best thing for a pandemic. I also do a lot of woodworking. And so this is an old table I built. I just built a new one for my house here in Huntsville. I love outdoorsy stuff. So I took a backpacking trip with some friends last summer. I love doing a lot of hiking. So if y'all have great recommendations for hikes in the area or camping spots, please let me know. And I'm also an avid reader. So if y'all have any book suggestions, please send them my way. This morning I finished How to Create a Mind by Ray Kurzweil. Pretty good. I'd recommend it. All right. So what is statistics and why is it cool, right? I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes at this point thinking, okay, statistics is not cool. I chose a humanities major so I wouldn't have to do all the math. But alas, my goal is to convince you that stats is not only cool, but very useful regardless of what career field you go into. And so statistics itself is simply kind of the focus on probability. So when we talk throughout this semester, we're going to talk about various things like measures of central tendency, so mean, median, mode, things like that, things I'm sure you all are familiar with. But then we're also going to talk about various statistical tests. And these statistical tests are going to allow you to differentiate whether a difference in the real world is due to chance or if it's likely due to whatever you're trying to measure. Right? And so when we think about statistics, think about flipping a coin. If you flip a coin twice, it's a lot more likely to come up 100% heads than if you flip a coin 100 times, right? We just know that kind of intuitively, instinctively. It's very likely you could get heads, but it's very unlikely you're going to get heads 100 times in a row. And so statistics allow us to say, okay, at what point could we say that this coin has a bias to it, right? And so if we flip the coin 25 times and it comes up 15 times head and 10 times tails, is that enough of a difference based off of probability to say that that coin is in fact biased? And the really cool thing about this is it essentially allows you to act totally as a mythbuster, right? I don't know if y'all remember the show Mythbusters. I think it went off the air and then came back in a slightly different form. But the whole idea behind Mythbusters was there is kind of this myth out in the world, and we're going to test it. And we're going to tell you whether or not this is the actual ground truth of the world. Now, we'll also talk later in the semester about not wanting to be a Mythbusters, right? Their approach statistically is not all that ideal, right? Because you all are now in an upper level college course in statistics. You're going to start to understand that maybe you shouldn't put too much weight in how Adam and Jamie approached their tests because of the statistical approach. But it should hopefully allow you to understand that kind of that instinctive question we all have in ourselves throughout the day, we can now answer, right? We can answer with statistics, are masks effective and efficient? Are different masks differently effective and efficient? We can start understanding, okay, is there a significant difference between the state of Alabama and the state of Mississippi in terms of coronavirus outbreaks, right? Not everything we do this semester will be in terms of coronavirus, but I think it's really helpful to start thinking about, okay, what are the questions you have in your daily life, and what are those objective answers that we can actually get? Okay, yes, thank you for answering Samantha's questions. Regardless, you have to show up one of the days. Yeah, so, I mean, you have the option to show up one of the days. I'm not going to mandate that any of y'all show up. So if you don't feel comfortable at any point in the semester, like let's say Huntsville has a little bit more of a resurgence of COVID numbers and you don't feel comfortable coming to campus, totally fine. You don't have to come to campus. You can let me know. We're going to be doing recordings and we're going to be doing the Zoom that we'll post. Now, I will say I did it hybrid because I got a lot of students saying, I don't know if I can do stats fully online. And so I wanted to give y'all the option to be able to come in person and see it in person. So, you know, I think there's a benefit to coming in person, but that's my style. And so for those of y'all who are doing strictly remote, that's completely fine. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure you get the same educational experience. And what I'm going to try to do is set up a webcam at essentially one of the tables. And so you all will get a view like you're in class, and we will still have all the questions and participations. You're just working completely remotely there. So I just realized when I had to restart my computer, it didn't save the slide additions or changes I made, but it's essentially the same information. I'll tell you where it's changed here. But the book we're going to be using is Statistics for the Behavioral Sciences. They have just released kind of a new version with Cengage. And so I'm not going to assign Cengage for this class. That's totally up to y'all if you want to be using the Cengage. I think it can provide a useful way to get some practice throughout the semester. But I say that because if you want to go find an old version of this book, you absolutely can. I also, you may have seen the option between the new version of the book without Cengage and the new version of the book with Cengage. I talked to the Cengage rep and was assured that the new version of the book with Cengage is actually cheaper than the new version of the book without Cengage. So, you know, if you find that not to be the case, let me know. But that's the reason I went ahead and went with that one for the bookstore. But again, you can find this old book. You know, in reality, statistics doesn't change all that much from year to year, at least at the level we're teaching it now. And so, you know, if you've got another stats book, you're more than welcome to use that one. I'm not going to go through that stat book with you and restructure, okay, what's the difference between the two books? But if you want to use a different book as a resource, I totally get it. Look, I know finances are tight, even in the best of times for college students, but I understand with everything else, I'm sure some of y'all have had jobs you haven't been able to work full time. And so, you know, we definitely want to make sure that it's as affordable as possible. Oh man, I'm going to try to say your name and I apologize. Apollonia says, what's your opinion on ebooks for stats? Totally up to you. Some people love ebooks because you have access to them wherever you want them. Some people actually like the physical books so they can write in the margins or things like that. And so whatever you decide is the answer. I don't think is the wrong way to go, but it will be helpful, I think, to have some book just to be able to do the practice problems, etc. Jay asks, is Cengage different than MindTap? The one I bought came with MindTap code, not Cengage. Yeah, so Cengage, I apologize, I missed it. Cengage is the company, MindTap is the product. So hopefully that, yeah, Ivana, yep, perfect. Beat me to it. Y'all are good. I don't even need to teach the class. You can just teach the class for me. So these are not required texts here, but I think Freakonomics, if you haven't read Freakonomics, I think it would be a really good thing for you to read. It's a really neat kind of expose into the way statistics can answer a lot of questions you have. Everything from how safe are hospitals to is there rampant cheating in sumo wrestling. It's a really neat book. And so, you know, you're not going to be quizzed on it, but I think it helps to kind of conceptualize the way we're thinking about statistics. There are also a whole bunch of other popular books out there. I don't think I've got the one I'm trying to remember the name of. Yeah, I don't think I've got it here. But there's a book I'll try to remember. It's something like The Way That You Can Lie with Statistics or something like that. And he goes over all the ways that people use statistics in an improper way to convey a point that isn't actually the ground truth, but they are conveying it with statistics so you think that their point has merit. And this is both done intentionally and unintentionally. And the book goes over a really great example, kind of on all sides of all different issues of how people are misled with statistics. All right, I'm going to pause real quick. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and hammer them into that chat box, and then we will go ahead and continue on. I have not already explained exams. Amanda says random, but I love seeing everyone's dogs. Yes. Yeah, I'm of a mixed mind here. If you have really cute pets, absolutely show them off, so long as they're not too distracting. But Nancy says, is it How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff? I think so. I'll have to look at that after, but that sounds right. Is a textbook required? Textbooks, it's not required per se, but it will help you enormously. So either split it with a friend or find an old copy. So they have practice problems in there that'll really help. They'll have additional explanations that'll really help. So it's not required, but I would strongly recommend it. Do we need the mind tap for the lab? I don't believe so. Kenya caught a mistake in the syllabus. Your lab TA's name is Caitlin Davis, not Payne Winston. And so Caitlin will be able to answer that for you. She should have some sort of communication. I don't think there will be requirements for mind tap, but double check with her to make sure. Evan says, book suggestion for pleasure reading, Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palin. I'm not going to try to say that. Writer of Fight Club. Cool. I'll definitely check that out. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Back to the class here. So this is wrong. So I had changed this before computer crashed. I did this last fall. And got some feedback that students didn't like the fact that the final exam is 50% of their grade. And so we're going to change this. So I think the way I have it now is there are going to be 4 total exams. I think each exam is going to be worth 200 points, and your final exam, I think, is going to be worth 250 points. So your final exam will still matter, but it won't be as potentially punitive. And I think that makes more sense. Doing with the final exam isn't the way I did it in previous semesters. Is nice in that if you botch one of the first 2 exams, you can still get a really high grade in the class. But it also means that if you do really well in the first 2 exams, you can't, have that kind of cover for you to some degree on the final exam. So this will be a good kind of mixture of it. And the nature of statistics means that every exam is going to be cumulative. I mean, there's just no way to teach statistics that isn't cumulative. And so the final exam will absolutely be cumulative, but each of the subsequent exams will be building off of the previous concepts, right? You're going to have to know how to calculate the mean and the standard deviation to then be able to get things like the ANOVA when they get there later in the semester. All right. Is lab a separate course? Is it possible to be in the class but not in the lab? So almost positively not, at least for psychology. There are a couple potential exceptions. I know there are some non-psychologists taking it, and I don't know what the expectations are for y'all's discipline, but I would check with your advisor to make sure. TA for my lab at least sent out an email with some information about labs via Canvas. Perfect. Jacob says the kinesiology majors aren't required to take the labs. Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. Jules says, will you post these slides syllabus on Canvas after this? Just to have a point of reference moving forward. Yes. So the syllabus is already posted on Canvas under the announcements section. The slides I will post under the file section. So biology majors are not required either. Okay, perfect. Yes. So thank you all for pitching in there. All right. So there will be random unannounced quizzes throughout the semester. However, they're not going to be for points, they'll be for extra credit. And so the way I've normally done this in pre-COVID times is it's an incentive to actually come to class. However, understanding that there are folks who are taking it remote and only half the class would even be in class on class days, I'm going to try to figure out what the answer is for that. I may be doing it in real time on Canvas, so I may open it at the very beginning of class, let y'all take the quiz, but I also understand that if you're taking the remote section, you may be just planning on catching the recordings later, and so we'll figure out what the right answer is. But kind of more so, they are for comprehension checks. They allow me to see what's going well, what's not going well, what do we potentially need to cover more of or regurgitate in class to make sure y'all are squared away. There won't be any makeups for these missed quizzes. There will be makeups for missed exams if, and only if, you have a valid reason told to me before the exam. The exams will all be online. The structure of the exam, I'm not sure yet. I kind of doubt it'll be multiple choice just because that's kind of a weird way to do a statistics. But I'm not sure what the right answer is going to be, but I will let you all know before the exam. And we will do the exams during the actual class period on that day. So it will open online at the start of the class and it will close online at the end of the class. And so it'll be just like you were coming into class, except you'll take the exam remotely. Example of valid excuses: death in the family, having a highly contagious, deadly disease like COVID. If you need to be going into the hospital, you can be excused from this. And I understand you can't tell me ahead of getting COVID that you're going to get COVID. And if you can tell me that, maybe you should just not do what was going to ever give you COVID. Yeah. Intergalactic alien invasion, who knows? The DoD has now decided that they're going to start releasing information about whatever they call them, unidentified aerial assets or whatever they are. So if we get invaded by aliens, I will probably postpone the exam, probably, but look for an email. A simple head cold. We all get head colds. We're going into the fall. I'm sorry, if you get a head cold, you still have to take the exam. Having not studied is also not an excuse. You would be surprised at how many people come to me and say, I didn't have time to study, so can I take the exam later? I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but you can't. Don't make me be the bad guy. Oversleeping. If you oversleep a 1 p.m. class, we've got bigger problems here. Unless you're like a night shift. So then we can maybe address it. But don't oversleep for the exam. They're at 1 o'clock. You'll be fine. I promise. All right. I do this every semester to verify that y'all can think of valid excuses and invalid excuses. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, is this a valid excuse? I can say, what do you think? So somebody give me an example of a valid excuse for missing an exam. Car accident, yes. Yeah, don't do a hit and run just to get to your exam. Felonies are not going to help you get through your college experience. All right, somebody give me intergalactic invasion. Yes, already said that one. Court date, yes. So if you do have a court date, you need to let me know ahead of time. Power outage, yes. However, I've had students give me the whole power outage thing in very implausible circumstances. It's rarely the case that your house is the only house in Huntsville that loses power. So try to avoid that being an issue. Death of family members or pets, yes. Jury duty, yes. Julie, if you die, you still have to take the exam. I'm sorry. Ace says, okay, come on, Ace. Being hungover is an invalid excuse. All right. Besides being hungover, what are some other invalid excuses for missing an exam? Excuses that if you come to me with them, I'm going to have to. The office marathon may be a valid excuse. We can address that on a case-by-case basis. Just kidding. That's not an excuse. Allergies, correct. Running late, correct. Yes. Yeah, you shouldn't be running late. Treat it as a regular class. Friends Marathon. Friends Marathon is absolutely invalid. It's a garbage show. I saw some of y'all cringe on that one. Not paying the internet bill. Yes, that is an invalid excuse, especially with all the resources UAH is putting forth to make sure. Forgot to water your fish. Yes. Yes. Seinfeld. Okay, yeah, Seinfeld's good. All right, perfect. So we've all got a good baseline as to the differentiation between a valid and an invalid excuse. So please, please, please don't make me be the bad guy. I don't like being the bad guy, but I will be the bad guy if you come and say, I forgot to water my fish, and therefore my fish died. I'm going to say you should have thought about the fact that you should put your fish in water. All right. If you're traveling for a sport, I don't know how sports are being conducted this year, but if you're on a sports team and you're traveling somewhere, you need to schedule the exam makeup with me before the scheduled date. You should know that you're going to be traveling for sports, and so let me know before the actual date, and we will get that exam squared away for you. Curving. So if you take my class before, you know that I curve every exam such that the top performer on the exam gets 100%. If anybody gets 100% before the curve, I don't curve it. I'm never going to curve downwards. So a curve can only work in your favor on the exams. So let's say the highest performer, for whatever reason, got an 80% on an exam. Everybody would get a 20-point curve. That's never been the case, that there's been a 20-point curve. So don't go banking on that. But I will curve it. I think that's the most fair way of doing it. That puts in any little fudge factor of weird questions that I put into the exam, or if there is just kind of a confusing topic that maybe I didn't cover all that appropriate in class. So there you go. Does that mean a curve will always be just points added, not any multiplication or grade ranges? Yes. Yeah. So I assume when you're talking about multiplication or grade ranges, you're talking about for the final course. Yeah, so the curve will only be for the points on the exams. Kaylee says, do you curve for the final as well? I do curve for the final exam as well. Yes. All right. I will also curve your grade only where I can round to the nearest whole percentage. So an 89.5 and up is an A. An 89.49 is a B. I every year say this, and every year have students come and say, okay, well, I've got an 89.3, and that's pretty close to an 89.5, so can you just round me up to a 90? That's not how that works. So, here you get a half-point leeway. Anything beyond that, you won't get curved for on your final grade. In fact, one semester, I even threatened to round people's grade down a letter grade if they came and asked, and yet I still had a handful of students come ask. So I didn't actually do it, so I'm not going to threaten anymore because that's kind of empty. Yeah, so there's the old joke I had before. All right. So here's the one kind of ultra serious thing I say every semester. If you have my class, you know how seriously I take this. So I'm going to treat you all like the adults you are, and I'm not going to micromanage everything. For the exams, because they're online, you will have Lockdown Browser and you will have Respondus Monitor. So I'm not going to micromanage. If I get a report from them that says they think that there's potential cheating, I'll take a look at it, but I'm not going to micromanage everything. However, if I do catch you cheating, I'm going to bring the hammer down. So at UVA, where I did my undergrad, if you got caught cheating, it meant automatic expulsion, no second chances. Same thing at the U.S. Air Force Academy when I was there. So depending on how egregious I think the instance of cheating is, I'll respond accordingly. So bare minimum, you'll get a 0 for the test. If it's really egregious, I will recommend expulsion. But just don't cheat, and it's not an issue. Pretty straightforward. So Yeah, and we will dictate what cheating actually is because you're going to be able to have um, um, formula sheets. I don't know why I was skipping my mind there. Formula sheets for the exams. So just don't work with other people in the exams and you'll pretty much be fine. Don't plug it in online either. You'll be fine. This is an old slide that I modified, but when I restarted the computer, didn't save. So, frankly, I don't really care if you come to class or not. It's your choice. You're an adult. You're paying a lot of money for an education. I genuinely believe that if you don't, attend every one of these classes or don't watch the recording of every one of these classes, you're not going to pass the class. And I will also say that I have a lot more sympathy for people who come at the very end of the semester needing a whole bunch of time to continue to work on their actual skills if I've seen them in class regularly. So I don't want it to be the case where you don't come to class, you don't watch the recordings, and then you expect me to teach to the exam in office hours. I'm more than happy to help in office hours, but please do come to class because I think it will absolutely help you. So for those of y'all, when you are in class, I just ask that you be respectful of other people in class. So if you want to browse social media, that's totally fine. You can do that. Again, you're paying a lot of money for these classes. And so I would advise against doing that. But if you are going to do that, go ahead and do it in the back of the class just so you're not distracting people. When you actually look at the data, it suggests that even having somebody in front of you browsing something other than what's relevant to the class can be disruptive enough to actually hurt your grade in the class. And so I want to be mindful of everybody as they come into class. So if you want to browse the internet, that's fine, but do so at the back of the classroom. Again, y'all pay too much for an education to have it ruined. All right, finally, I'll just say have fun. I absolutely hated statistics in college. I could not stand it. But that's because I saw it as a topic and not a tool, right? I think the really neat thing about statistics is that it allows you to answer any question you want that has an answer, right? Don't think of statistics as kind of the theory of statistics, although you can if you're perverse enough to like that sort of idea. But think of statistics really as a way in which you can answer questions you have, right? Especially now during COVID times, there are so many sources of data and big databases all over the place answering all sorts of things, from what do people's movements look like in different states, different regions, to the outbreaks, to efficacy of masks, to social distancing efficacy, etc. And so statistics is going to allow you to truly get the answers to these questions and more questions outside. And so if you have a question about the state of the world that you think would be appropriate and kind of an interesting thing for us to do in class, let me know, because we're going to do real world examples. And so I can either make up data, or you can say, hey, I found this cool data set. You think we could answer whether there's a difference between X and Y on this third variable? We will absolutely go over it. So I understand a lot of you at this point are probably feeling overwhelmed by the idea of taking statistics. I know a lot of you are probably dreading taking statistics. I know some of you are excited about it. But rest assured, I get the dread. I absolutely hated statistics in undergrad. And in fact, I said at one point to my lab TA, why do I have to know this? I'm not going into academia. Well, joke's on me, because I did wind up going into academia. It has applications well beyond academia that we will get into throughout the semester. But I mean, think about it really as a tool. You can answer whatever questions you have, and that's pretty stinking neat. All right, so what questions do y'all have at this point? Katie says, on the exams, we'll be able to use the statistical tables in the appendix. I will provide you all the statistical tables that you need for the class itself. What other questions? We have to attend the lab at a set time each week too. I'm not sure how Caitlin's going to run that, so I would defer to her. They are, I think, scheduled for a specific time, but I would talk to her about that. If we are scheduled to attend on campus on Monday, are we to log onto Zoom on the opposite class time? Yes. Yeah, so the opposite. So if you're supposed to come on Mondays, on Wednesdays, you will not come into class and you will access through Zoom. That way we can keep social distancing in the actual classroom. Can you repeat what we will use to take the exams? Those will be online. They will be using Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown Browser. Nancy says, direct quote from Caitlin, there will be 10 labs for you to complete the semester. They will be open at 12 a.m. on Monday mornings and close at 6 p.m. Friday night, so you have an entire week to complete and submit them. Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. How will pop quizzes be presented through Canvas? So they won't be paper and pencil because there's a contingent of y'all that are just taking the class remotely, and that wouldn't be fair. They will most likely be through Canvas, actually almost certainly through Canvas, but when they're administered will be something I still figure out of whether those will be a specific time during class to reward those that are actually coming to class. And thus, if you have a computer, bring that computer, or it may be, okay, it's open for 3 hours and you have to go answer it. Are the lectures going to be pretty interactive or more presentation-like? I'm going to try to make them interactive. There will be presentation of information. They will at least be interactive in the sense that we will be going over problems together and asking questions and things like that. I'm going to try to make it less of me just talking at you and more of us trying to get through everything together. But in the middle of the semester, I'll actually ask for feedback. So if you've ever taken one of my classes, you know I'll ask for feedback in the middle. And this will allow me to get kind of a good gauge on what y'all think. And so if you want more interaction at that point, or even before, feel free to come and talk to me about it. We need to sign up for a remote section or just participate via Zoom meeting twice a week. So if you've signed up for a remote section, then you'll do the Zoom meetings. If you are signed up to do in-person and you don't feel comfortable doing in-person, you can, at least for my class, you could just tune into the Zoom lectures if you wanted to. If we are an online class but decide to go to a class or two later in the semester, should we enroll in the in-class course or can we remain in the remote section? So I would enroll in the actual class course because they've put a cap on it to make sure that we have enough space and seats for these students to remain socially distanced. So, Kate says, if we test better in a regular setting, can we test in the testing center? Yeah, so I assume you mean with regular setting being like paper and pencil. If so, I will figure out what the structure of the exams will be, but I will try to make accommodations for those of you all who would rather take it in person to take so at the testing center. Extended time for students with disabilities. Yes, if you have a request for extra time, please let me know. Send me the relevant paperwork. Can you repeat who our TA is for the lab portion? Yes, it's Caitlin Davis. I've now updated the syllabus on Canvas to reflect that, and so y'all can now go access the syllabus, and it has her name and contact information. Samantha says, if we have another class that is a Zoom session at this time, are we able to revert back to the recordings and listen to lessons like this? Yes. I'm surprised that the system allowed you to sign up for 2 classes that have concurrent Zoom sessions. There will be the option, I will record all of these and post them, and so you'll be able to go back and watch them. But I would try to attend just because I think if you're able to ask questions in class, that benefits everybody and prevents me from having to answer the same question multiple times. Kenya says, are we allowed to have scratch sheet to work problems out and calculator? That will be dictated before the exam. I'm almost positive the answer to that will be yes for both of those. Nancy says, some professors are making random Zoom sessions for the Q&As and post their lessons, which explain the sessions being at the same time. Okay. Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure out navigating this at this point. I want to be as flexible as I can to kind of accommodate to y'all. But I still do think that there is a benefit from attending concurrent sessions. So we will try to do that. And I'm going to limit the into the outside, like meetings or stuff like that. So it will try to be during this time, during the actual class period, especially if we're doing any like reviews or things like that. Also for my lab, or excuse me, for my office hours, I do have space for you to come into my office and for us to socially distance, but I would prefer to do it over Zoom. And so if you'd like to set up a meeting, just shoot me an email and we can absolutely set up a meeting to do that. If you'd rather meet in person, still send me an email. And then obviously the expectations are everybody would have masks when they come into my office for that meeting. Kate says, should we buy a calculator for this class? I think it would benefit you to have a calculator for this class. It doesn't need to be fancy. I mean, you can get one of the cheap versions that will just do, you know, basic arithmetic. Get one that'll do square root as well, but it doesn't need to be one of these, you know, $100 TI-84 or 85 or whatever we're on calculators. Will we be required to use lockdown browser for tests and quizzes? Yes. April says, how soon do we need to have our textbooks? Sooner the better. I mean, we are getting into statistics, the actual principles of statistics next class. So, yeah. All right, Samantha, email me and we can talk offline. Any other questions? Also, I made the grave mistake of getting hazelnut instant coffee from Nescafe. So if any of y'all are thinking about doing this for convenience, don't. It's garbage. I think I just embalmed myself drinking that. All right, any other questions? Taking the exam early, only if you have a specific conflict. I'm not going to make accommodations, or I'm not going to change the time for folks, but if you're traveling for sports or something like that, we can do that. Just make certain, what do we need? Any form of access? We do not need any form of access for this class. What do you mean by access, Alex? Access code. If you're talking about for MindTap, yeah, I will post that, but the MindTap will again just be for practice. It's not going to be for a grade. So I will post that access code if that's what you're referring to. If you mean access code for something else, let me know. All right, I am not seeing any other questions. I'm going to hang out online here until the last person signs off. And so if you do have questions, go ahead and type them in. Otherwise, I will see a contingent of y'all on Monday. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, Amanda. And Jessica and Kenya, thank you all. And Julie, you too, Evan. Thank you, Rachel, Ivana, Ryan, Kate, Amber, Evan, everybody, thank you all. Thank you, Maya. William says, will there be enough practice provided if we don't get mind tap? Yeah, you'll have practice, your practice in the book, and then also because the principles of statistics are taught kind of across all universities, you will, I mean, online there are a whole bunch of practice resources as well, but we'll have practice in class, et cetera. Sunny says, will there be Zoom meetings for the lab? So the labs are all pre-recorded, and those are on your actual lab section. So you should have gotten an email from Caitlin kind of detailing the actual structure of accessing those labs.
Oh, my question is actually related. I have you for Psych 102 as well.
Great.
Are you gonna have like Zoom meetings or anything for that class?
You mean for the actual like lectures of that class? So because that one's fully online, that's going to be asynchronous. So I'm not going to have Zoom meetings. Those will just be recorded and posted. But if you want to set up conversations or Zoom meetings or whatnot, let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks. You too, Sonny.